You might be familiar with that painting, that drawing. Let's take a look at that again. You may be familiar with that, and then you may not be. If you've seen the movies, if you've read the books, we've seen an encounter. Several encounters take place in the first novel and in the first movie based around this particular place. At the time, it's a ruin. It's called Weathertop. This is Weathertop, and the great watchtower of Amon Sul, or the Tower of the Wind. Now, this particular set was an offshoot series, started later in Ice's run on MERP, called the Fortresses of Middle-earth. They only did a handful of them, sadly, because then the company went belly up shortly, a year or so after these started coming out. This was one of the nicer ones that they put out. It's a key spot all through the history of Arnor, whether it's before Arnor in the first age, the second age, the third age, and then in the fourth age when Aragon returns to the north and 8 or 9 years later begins to lays the foundation to rebuild the tower based on the original blueprints. And so he rebuilds the fortress. This is the Fortress of the Seer. It's a counterpart to Isengard. Okay, but not quite on that scale, because Isengard was built by the Numereans at their power, and this was built by the Arnorians at their power, which was with a little less magic and material available to them, but went into Isengard. This tower was vast and large. It held the central seeing stone for Arnor. The Arnorians had 3 of them. Gondorians had 5 of the 9 plant here, and the key one of the 3 that was in the north was located at this particular tower at the top of the tower. So this was the central location for the seers and the defense of Arnor proper. And it was centered more or less off-centered, actually. The argument is it's in the center of Arnor, and that's not true. Arthedain contained a much grander region of area to the west but it is the center point of the 3 splinter kingdoms later on. To the west is Arthedain, to the southwest is Cardolan, to the north and northeast is Rhudaur, and it is multiply fought over. It is fought over many, many times, and this is one of the reasons why it has this kind of haphazard look to it. The keep and bailey setup that they built was built in stages by different kings over time. The history of this thing goes quite a ways back, and they actually do a good job of talking about the background of this particular location and the first men, the Dane from the first age, and then it goes on to the history. So the devastation of Rhudaur, the end of the second age, the downfall of Number, and the coming of the Dunedain, founding of the fortress of Amon Sul, the sundering of Arnor and Gondor, the sundering of Arnor, the rise of Angmar and Rhudaur's fall, the fall of Cardolan, the destruction of the fortress, the fall of Arthedain, Weathertop during the late Third Age, the rebuilding of the fortress. See, there's 3 pages of history, basically, give you the lineup of how old this thing is and how much effort went into it. The primary premise of these source books is the fortification itself. They don't go into great detail about the surrounding terrain or politics, but they give you the layout, the defenses. They go level by level, tower by tower, quite a few pages of this kind of stuff for use. Like I said, here we got another page and yet another page and another page. So you get the gist, right? A lot of blueprints here in this. Some really good artwork. Some stuff actually not too bad. I think I could draw something like that, given some time. I actually have drawn a few things of that to that degree. I'm proud to say that my art skills had improved some considerably. We got even the stable individual horses sitting there in the pictures. Come on, some good stuff right there, right? I've actually both utilized this layout for a number of different sources, everything from evil wizards towers to defending fortresses and castles and so on and so forth over the years. The book has seen a little bit of wear and tear because of it. One of the things I learned to do, this is before I had my own computer and printer, is I'd run out to a local it was Hy-Vee at the time. Local grocery store had a big fancy Xerox machine for 10 cents, and you could basically take a photocopy and blow it up. So I could blow up an actual page-size layout of these tower rooms, so I could use my miniatures for our gaming group on them, which it worked out real nice. Saved me a lot of hassle and time of trying to write it out. And of course, we have room by room, layer by layer description of everything that's in there. And then there's a short section on the NPCs of the garrison, the key people, the size of them, depending on who's in charge at what time. For the most part, Arnor had a contingent of about 96 soldiers. They have a term for it. Excuse me if I don't tell you because I can't pronounce the word. It's a company, right? And the Royal Arnorian army, and it was one of 10 companies. So it tells you how small the Arnorian army was. The Royal Arnorian army only numbered about 1,000, give or take. And then of course the levies and the militia from all the local lords and stuff like that. But the actual military garrison itself was quite small. In the latter years, Arthedain and Cardolan in turn each controlled the Amon Sul at one time or another and tried to maintain a similar sized force there because it seemed to work. It seemed to work except when it didn't. And then we have this back section of giving you some kernels or seeds for adventures, early adventures, and then there's adventures amidst the war, journey to the ruins, fourth age adventures. So late second age, the castle warden is an agent of the Dark Lord. He's been spying on the Paracam, the High Seer, and he's plotting to murder the Great Lord. Argabagol, the second. These people come up with these names, man. I know how I come up with names, and it frustrates some people because sometimes I'll just look around and go, I'll take 3 letters from this and 4 letters from that and jam them together. How do you pronounce it? Who cares, right? Okay. Weathertop, good blueprint, mostly blueprint, a good source material for a large tower and or a wizard's tower if you need be. If not, it's a good campaign by itself. You can play it numerous adventures. It can be tied into a lot of the other adventures because of its location, and that's why they give you the range of history behind it. That way you can plug it into whatever age bracket your particular group is playing it. So, like it, love it, hate it, blog it, tell me about it.